Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning in to Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by Botaniga Candles and more. If you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. What's up, Phil?
What is going on, everybody? Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday. How are you, brother?
Yo, life is good, man.
It's good.
Life is good. Happy to be here. It's always a pleasure to have you in here, man.
Likewise,
It's like you are the coffee of podcasting for me.
Oh man, thank you.
You know what I mean?
It's a breath of fresh air. I'm happy to be so.
Yeah. So like I love.
Speaking of coffee,
here. Yeah.
How's the coffee doing? You know, you're pushing the motivational coffee. We definitely gotta mention it.
Yeah, coffee's doing great. You go to Podcast Fuel, podcastfuel.com. And so that's my podcast brand for coffee. It helps especially with podcasters. It has extra caffeine. But anyway,
absolutely.
But how have you been?
Definitely a great way to start the day. Everything's good, man. Just a lot of work going on, a lot of different functions and whatnot, keeping me busy. You know, looking forward to the workshop as well. This year we're going to be hitting Atlanta and New York. Still got some spaces available. Family, if you haven't had the opportunity, definitely check those out. Get in there. We're so excited to visit both locations. And of course, the membership program, you know, if you know anybody who can benefit from it, definitely let them know. We appreciate our members so much. Definitely let us know what you want to see so we can put it there exclusively for you guys to view.
I know what I want to see.
What?
We need to get you an interview with T.I. You're going to Atlanta.
Oh, Lord.
So
yeah, there's a lot going on right now. There's a lot going on.
We need to get you because the conversation between the two of y'all would be expeditious.
That's an intelligent guy. Guy for sure. You know, you kind of see that common thread amongst most successful people, but definitely his conversation is top tier. So God bless, man. There's a lot going on right now.
All right. So what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about the Odu Ogbe Ogunda, also known as Ogbe Yono.
Okay.
And I'll explain why I did that in a couple stories. But we're going to be continuing our Ogbe series. So many interviews recently and other topics and whatnot we haven't gotten through, but we're enjoying every single one that we come out with. Ogbe Yono is an Odu that is very easy to recognize. It's one that most people have heard of before. And, you know, it's one that comes out quite a bit. I would go as far to say it's one of the top 5 most important signs in all of the corpus, based on some of the themes we're going to get into. But it's definitely one that, as a babalawo, as a priest of Ifa, you're going to come in contact with. And we've done other videos talking about certain questions, and somehow or another, this sign usually comes up because this is the Odu where destiny was first identified, molded, and assimilated or placed. So definitely one that is going to have a lot of mysteries in it, and one that's going to be very nourishing for anybody that's trying to grow their spiritual knowledge. But when we talk about Ogbe Yono, before we get into the various patakis that compose it, the theological aspect of it is extremely important, right? When we say the word Ogbe Yono, you're going to see the babalaos or most practitioners, they'll tap their stomach and blow their fingers, right? And this is to be able to refresh or, salute Ori Inu, right? Or Ionu. Ogbe Yonu or Ogbe Yono is also known as Ogbe Yonu or Ogbe Yonu, right? Which means Ogbe is within, or it speaks of the seat of destiny that's actually situated on our belly button, right? So when we talk about Ori has 3 components. Ori is our head, right? You have the belly button, which is Ionu, right? And then you have the left big toe, which is Imponring or Impori. So why is this so important? Because these are the 3 basic parts of the being that is humans, and what guides them, which is Ori. So, for example, whenever we're doing an Ibori or a head rogation, from a Lukumi standpoint, being that we lean more towards the Odu Oturawani, we don't focus too much on the belly button, even though I personally incorporate it based on, Isheshe apprenticeship and study. But when you look at the Ibori from an Isheshe standpoint, it emanates from these three spaces, right? Where you'll see something done to the head, the belly button, and ultimately the left big toe. And this could be discussed because it's public. Anybody can have an Ibori done for them, and it's highly recommended. But you're even going to see it when we perform blood sacrifice to animals and whatnot, that there's a constant realignment of Ori that occurs. Making sure that the animal wasn't cleansed with, they'll probably taste the blood, and then the awo, or the priest that is performing the sacrifice, will dab some blood from the forehead to the back of the head. And this action represents the feeding or realignment of Ori, and also Ipako, which is where Eshu sits on the back of the head. When we look at the Odu Ogbe, it speaks of when Ori dominated the front part of the brain, right? The modern, progressive brain. And then the prehistoric brain, or the caveman brain, situates itself in the back, which is the subconscious, right? The darkness, which is where Eshu sits, because no one could look back into their own head. But who encompasses all of these concepts ultimately is Ogbe Yono, because the first time that they were fed in a way where they were aligned, apart from the Odu Ogbe and Obeade, was in Ogbe Yono. So you also see them dab some blood to the belly button, right? And the left big toe, right? With Impori. So all of these actions and all of these themes are in Ogbe Yono. The seats of Ori, the places. Ultimately, Ogbe Yono can actually be debated, apart from the Odus of like Eyobe and Ogunamei, as the Odu of Ori. Now, why do we say this? We say this because in heaven, there's a certain theater that plays out in this Odu, where once an energy has been selected or has presented itself to be born, right? Being that, have you ever seen Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah, man, he's everywhere.
Yeah, he's awesome. But he had this one video or thing that he said that really blew my mind. He said, every human being is a miracle. And I watched the whole thing, and he said, the reason we're a miracle is because we're one of trillions, if not more, possibilities. And we're alive.
Oh, right? Yeah, I know this speech. I would play it, but it's probably copyrighted.
Yeah, absolutely. But it really goes back to this concept within Ogbe Yono where, there's so many people, or so many, predestined heads in heaven that have been selected to be born, that are still waiting in line, that haven't even had the chance to be born yet. So when it's somebody's turn, a couple things occur. The first, the Orisha Odudua and Ogun start molding the body from the toes to the neck in clay and iron, right? That's why, you'll see Okun ring or Obing ring as a word. The ring part makes reference to the iron that Ogun utilizes to construct the body. And then the clay has always been a metaphor for flesh, right? That's why if you notice, a lot of the things that we make, like for example, whether it's a spiritual pot, icons to a certain degree, what have you, clay is a very heavily used thing because it's actually a metaphor for flesh. Not to be gruesome, but they say that when a body decomposes, it starts looking like clay. It turns gray, different shades of brown, etc., until it's reassimilated back into the earth. So they make that body from the toes to the neck, right? Now, once that's done, they're taken to a place known as Ajalamo, right? This concept can be found in Ogbe Yono, also the Odu Ofumbile, which is basically Ajala's house, right? Who is Ajala? Obadala Ajala is the Obadala path that constructs Ori, right? Ogbe Yono is known as the constructor of heads. So this guy, all he does all day is make heads or destinies out of clay. Now, each destiny is governed ultimately by an Odu, right? So you walk into this warehouse headless, and there's trillions of just clay heads, sitting around. So the reason we go in headless and blind is so that we can't cheat and pick the one that has the longest life, the most money, the most happiness, ideal partnership, fulfillment, etc. It has to be an honest process for the universe not to implode and its structure. So Ogbe Yono, ironically, has a pataki where it says that the reason Ogbe Yono became such an Orisha, or a selected head, or celebrated, was because he was told during celestial divination to not pick one that was too big because it would be too much to handle, but to not pick one that was too small either because it would leave him unfulfilled. He found one that when he felt it, felt like it would accommodate his body. And when he did that, being that he wasn't overly ambitious or unmotivated, he put the head on and things went well for him, right? But once we put that head on top of our shoulders, as Ayobe says, that Ori occupies the apex position of the body, we are taken in front of Olodumare. And we kneel, like Obedi says, Kunle, right? And Olodumare says, well, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? It's your turn. And you look at the creator, and, you know, in my case, I said, I want to be a Babalao. And he was like, all right, you could do that. But based on your Odu of Ireta Suka, you have to go through this, you know, a couple obstacles. What do you offer as tribute? Those things were revealed in my Ifa. And, you know, a couple conversations happened there before the final confirmation and a deployment, as I like to call it. So Olodumare basically asked the energies that be. Now, this is the Lukumi aspect of the philosophy, because in Isheshe, you pick which Orishas you want to initiate into based on the affiliation with your Odu. But from a Lukumi standpoint, we believe Olodumare says, hey, which Eguns or which spirits are going to help him, you know, by seeking elevation and whatnot. So the Congo was there. A couple other ones specific to me were there. The Indio was there. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to ensure that I fulfill my mission. Because if I don't, they don't get their enlightenment and elevation, and they don't get to move into the great beyond, right? Or whatever that is. So they're there, and they are actually connected to us via ethereal cord, right? So their life and our life are basically synonymous, where if we expire before accomplishing what we're meant to, they unfortunately, you know, stay unfulfilled and have to keep repeating it. So it's a team effort. Then apart from that, Olodumare will say, hey, which Orisha is the one that most assimilates this person? Because something has to be, you know, addressed and recollected. When we in the Lukumi tradition as Babalawos ask the Orisha Alabatori, or the Orisha that governs the head or is the elder of the head, we're not really asking who the guardian angel is. We're actually asking which Orisha is the most productive for the person to initiate into in this lifetime. Because in the Lukumi tradition, we only initiate into Orisha once, being that we're very Oyo, Shango-centric. Being that over there, once Shango, you know, assimilates his space on the body, they're like nobody else can, because he's Obakini Ba, or King of Kings. Over here, we're trying to figure out which one is the best one for that person in this lifetime, or that's going to help them the most. And the person who most precisely responds to that is Orumila, as he always has. So in my case, Oshun was like, hey, I'll do it. So, okay. And then finally, there's this gentleman, the real star of the show, even though he's real humble, is Eleri Ping, right? The witness of destiny, Orumila himself. Ibikeji Olodumare, he who sits next to Olodumare and witnesses all these things. So Olodumare looks at him and says, hey, do we have everything written down? Orula's like, all right, I got the guardian angel. I got the Odu, I got the recommendations, I got everything. I think we're set. And Olodumare says, au revoir, right? And at that moment, we're born. Now, the reason we don't remember any of these things is because there's this fluid, the amniotic fluid, known as Omibabe, which is the water of forgetfulness.
It's like the Matrix, man. When Neo's reborn,
pretty much, dog. When they unplugged him, right?
Yeah. Because they're in the sacks.
And if you notice, when Neo goes back, they have to put all that hard drive into him, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna get to that now when the person receives the hand of Ifa.
Okay.
Because the mother, her womb is known as Ibo Ibabe, which is the forest of forgetfulness, and within it is this liquid, which, you know, through pregnancy, gestation process, etc., we forget everything, you know. So this is a peculiar predicament, because as soon as we're born, we're crying, because they kicked us out of paradise and we're getting spanked by the doctor. They're sticking some needles in us. They're rubbing things in our eyes. It's a very uncomfortable process bringing somebody down from heaven. So in Ogbe Yono, it was identified a couple key things that Ori awakens differently for different genders, right? So for the ladies, it awakens at 7 days old, right? The number 7 has always been a very maternal, divine number, right? So it's always been associated with women. Like the number 7 in the Erindi Logun is Odi, right? Which has to do with maternity and the feminine physiology to facilitate birth. So that's why it's associated with them. And then for boys at 9 days old, now the number 9 is assimilated to the Odu Ogbe and the Arindi Logung, and always has had to do a lot with Egungun, the ancestral line and things like that. So, and women develop mentally much quicker than men. You know, if you have any doubts of that, go to a, just, I don't know, go to a playground and see how the girls are playing versus how the boys are playing, right? So once that occurs and, we're able to get through those first couple days successfully, a family that practices Ifa is going to take that child traditionally to the house of a Babalawo or the house of Orumila, right? Why? Because if Orumila was the caretaker of this divine information in heaven, one of his representants, the Babalawos, us, are going to be the ones to reveal it via the sacred divination method of Iking. Now, how is this all facilitated? The Odu Ogbe Yono states that to be able to reveal a destiny, there's a couple things that have to be present. First, Ori, right, or the person's head. And then secondly, Iking, right? And the reason being is because when someone comes to do their life divination and the revelation of their destiny, the first thing they have to do is recreate what they did in heaven. They're going to kneel. They're going to put their forehead to the tray, which represents the universe. And when they put their forehead to the tray and kiss the tray, at that moment, it's almost like an X-ray was taken of their spiritual internal brain, right? Or Orinu. Why is this key? Because this is going to be the instrument or tool that is going to reveal what is inside that head. Now, the tray is going to be, littered or sprayed with ierosum, which is identified as the blood of Orumila, in Obeate. So it also represents the blood, the gray matter, all of the things that could be happening inside that brain. And then finally, the Iking, amongst other things, represent the neurons and all of the molecules inside that compose a double helix of DNA. So when you look at an Odu of Ifa, it is nothing more than a double helix, right? And it goes right to left, right? Just the way the world always has. 4 quadrants vertically until it's fulfilled into one of these 256 combinations, which is the numeral that was identified by this divine geometry, right? It's the balance, it's an even number. So once that's done, oh my God, the Neo process happened where they unplugged him and he's here. It's really the first moment where the person's true soul penetrates their brain. Now, some people say, well, Baba, why didn't they come down with their soul? Well, the thing is there's various energies in heaven, and one of them is Elenini, or the Orisha. It's not really an Orisha, it's the energy of misfortune. And Elenini did not want human beings to be born, right? So he started chasing them, and in the hullabaloo, he had to leave his destiny behind to be able to get out of heaven, And Orula said, don't worry, just go now and start running now, and I'll send it down. Just make sure you look for me on earth. So in Iroso Mei, the person started running from Elenini, and he got a good head start. But misfortune moves at a velocity that is unmatched. It's almost at the speed of light. So right when he took that jump out of heaven to head towards earth, Elenini went like this. And he had like this huge velociraptor claw. When you read the literature, it's wild. And he basically swiped at his back. And from that swipe came the eternal mark of the indentation of the spine, right? That's why all of us have that on the back going down our vertebral column. That was born in the Odu Irosomeji and is a message from Elenini that, I'll never be far. Misfortune is never far. The Odu Ofumei says death is never far. So it's a reminder, right? But when he got to earth, he had to go looking for a Babalawo to be able to bring down his spirituality. Orumiela, when we actually translate Orumiela's name, it's Orumiela, which means in heaven I left my destiny, or in heaven I left Elah, because they were in the process of trying to assimilate the soul and the body synonymously before sending him down so he wouldn't have to go looking for anything again. But it just wasn't enough time because the energies in the universe that were negative, that are necessary because they maintain a balance, wanted to interrupt creation all the way around. So that's why, we have to go back to Ifa or back to Orumila to actually have our soul integrate into our body. Now, up until the point where the person has their hand of Ifa, They're simply organic matter. And it's not that they're any lesser than. You've had amazing people go through life without receiving Hand of Ifa and accomplish quite a bit. But just think about if they would have had it. Just think about all of the ifs, if they would have had it and gone through their process. And that's pretty scary too. But you also got to think some people came into the world in this incarnation to not necessarily elevate. They came here to fulfill, and maybe this was their last go around. So maybe they didn't need it. That's all interpretive at that point. But that's why we have to go back to Orumila's house to be able to reveal our destiny, assimilate our true soul. For the people that aren't eligible for Itefa, but for the brothers that are eligible to become Babalawo, the Hand of Ifa represents nothing more than a message motivationally. Hey, this is the lie you're living right now, right? This is the Odu I'm giving you right now to be able to reveal your true self in the Bodu, right? When you go through Itefa, Itelodu, etc. So all of that is in the Odu of Ogbe Yono, right? So definitely matrix-like process, and once again, the parallels are, uncanny. But that's one aspect, right? In the Odu of Ogbe Yono, there's a lot of really great information. There's patakis for days. It's one of the biggest Odus, definitely one of the most important. But there's a story that, isn't commonly out there that I've always really appreciated because it has a lot of real-world interpretation and context. In the Odu of Ogbe Yono, it speaks of Eshu, right? Now, mind you, Eshu is the expanse of the universe. He's the absence of light. He is the antithesis of Ori. He is the temptation that tries to balance our minds out in a way to make sure that we really are virtuous and honorable through overcoming that temptation. So Eshu, or in this case, ultimately Elegua, depending on how you want to interpret it, was starting to have nightmares, right? And he thought this was really odd. He's like, I'm the owner of the universe. Why am I having nightmares? Why is there this disalignment that's occurring? So he went to visit Oromila. This is one of the Odus where Eshu received divination from Oromila. Another one is Oyekumbirikusa, because there's people or, professionals that are like, well, show me an example of where Eshu needed Oromila to identify things. And Ogbe Yono is one of them. So when Elegua went to receive divination, the Odu of Ogbe Oriogunda was revealed. And Ifa told him that he needed to perform sacrifice, specifically with a blade, right? To be able to defeat his enemies, even though they were unknown at the moment, right? I believe there was a goat involved, something monumental. And when he did it, he was told to perform the sacrifice and ultimately deposit it in the evening. Which is, ironic because a lot of people say, well, Ifa can't be worked at night, but, any practical professional knows that usually we do finish at night. And when he went to deposit the Ebo near his bedside, or in some versions it was under a tree, etc., who came to devour the Ebo, to interrupt it, was the moon. And when Eshu looked, he looked at the moon, he said, I can't believe that you're my enemy. You're the sole proprietor, along with your daughters, the stars. I've given you space and position within the night sky. And, why would you attack me? Why would you cause me to have nightmares? Why would you send me shepe, or curses? And the moon was jealous of Eshu, because once she occupied her space, she felt like she didn't have to share it with anybody. She was one of the few light sources in the night sky to be able to illuminate it within Eshu's kingdom and domain. So he said, okay, I got one for you. Watch this. And Eshu took the blade and he cut her 31 times, right? Now, on the final blow, which was going to be the 32nd, he was going to make her disappear, maybe the 31st, what have you. And she was like, no, please. And he said, I'm not going to kill you because I care about the people on earth. I'm not going to destroy you because the people on earth need you. But you will only be in your strongest form one day a month. So in the Odu of Ogbe Yono is where the phases of the moon manifested. That's why throughout the 31 days of the month, or 30 or 28, depending on the month, the moon looks different every time. And it's because it represents each time that Eshu cut her, trying to eliminate her. Now, what's interesting is the parallels between the moon and mental state. In antiquity, the moon was seen as the greatest influence over mental well-being. And if we look at, the Latin prefix of luna, it's actually that of lunatic. That's where that word comes from.
Really?
Absolutely. So the word lunatic derives from luna, which means moon, and lunatic means that which is influenced negatively by the moon, right? Because originally, psychologists and people who delved into this science believed that if there was any form of mental instability, it was based on the moon, right? Now, whether they derived that information ultimately from this information that I'm relaying today, who knows? But more than likely, because depending on the phase of the moon that was manifested at the moment, Eshu would act erratically. Like, he noticed that his worst nightmares were during a full moon. Another thing that manifested in Ogbe Yono, apart from astrology and stargazing and looking at the moon and the supermoon and the eclipses and all these other things manifested here, another thing is to identify specific processes based on the phase of the moon. So you'll have some brothers who practice malongo. They're like, okay, we got a full moon this day, we're going to do this function this day. Or you'll have some bawalaos who are like, okay, full moon this day, we're going to do this process, depending on whatever they're trying to accomplish. So it has a huge influence, and it goes all the way back to this this story, right? So I always really enjoyed that one, because it was always wild to me for Eshu to actually be going to war with one of his residents, basically, or one of his tenants, which was the moon and the stars. So you're going to see that, unfortunately, people who have the Odu Ogbe Yono, they may suffer from nightmares and things like that, and it's usually spiritually induced, whether, God forbid, it's witchcraft or just, the need to get the sebo done to be able to align and be able to have that tranquility and rest. Because it is an Odu of insomnia, where Eshu would stay up all night because the moon wouldn't allow him to sleep. So after this, he was able to find that peace. So, in the Odu of Ogbe Yono, it speaks also of the Orisha Ogun. Definitely a very important deity. First time we mentioned him was he was one of the constructors of the human body, right? But in this Odu, Ogbe Yono was a traveler. He was somebody that wanted to explore and experiment other things besides his natal surroundings, right? So he decided to travel, and before traveling, he was going to receive divination and perform ebo, which was the most prudent thing. His Odu of Ogbe Yono was revealed, where Ifa said that he would become a king in the next land, but he needed to perform sacrifice with a rooster to be able to protect himself, because there was going to be treachery and envy. So he did that, and when he arrived in the next land, it was one that was in disarray, and they were looking for somebody different, possibly foreign, to be able to qualm all of the infighting and help them move progressively into the future. So Ogbe Yono came with a lot of character. He came with a lot of intelligence and a lot of common sense, and he was able to resolve all of the issues in that land in an unbiased, unemotional, logical fashion. So they made him king. They said, all right, you're the guy, but with admiration ultimately came envy. You got to look at history. The biggest haters were usually the biggest fans at one point, or they might still be. So it happened the same way. And they wanted to create a plot to be able to remove him, because he was just a very progressive guy. He was a very popular guy. So they accused him of a bunch of various things. They voted him off into execution, and it was all a lie. Now, the way they would execute people in that land is they would thrust them or leave them in the jungle to be eaten by a monster that lived there. So he said, all right, this isn't good. It's exactly how Ifa said, but he still had his rooster tucked away. So he tucked the rooster into his garb, and he was taken to the jungle and left there. So little by little, he was trying to, find some food, maybe some water, and all of a sudden this monster pops out. And his first instinct was to throw the rooster at him to give him time to be able to run away. So he kind of betrayed the rooster too, So the monster started eating the rooster, and when it was done, it got out of its locura, or its trance, its bloodthirsty trance, and looked at Ogbe Yono and said, why did you feed me? He said, well, I didn't think I had many other options. I did a bowl. I saw myself with Ogbe Yono. Told me to have a rooster, and I literally did it out of fright. You scared me. And he said, well, my name is Ogun, and I'm really not a monster, but the way these people treat me and have me expelled, I basically survive off of eating the people who are to be executed. But I really don't want to live like that, and you're the first person to treat me with any, ounce of humanity. So how about this? Let's make a pact. I go back down there. You told me they betrayed you. I'll threaten everybody. And if we have to, we annihilate everybody and we start over. If not, yeah, I'll make you king again. You have to promise to always attend to me. And he said, man, you'll be the patron Orisha of this land if you can get me back on the throne. And it was just like that. He walked back into the city with Ogun. People were terrified, horrified. And Ogun said, either you guys make this guy king again because you betrayed him and you made up a bunch of nonsense, or I'm going to annihilate all of you and we're going to start over anyway. So everybody bowed. Ogbe Yono became king again, and he always praised and thanked Ogun. This Odu says that the person has to be careful traveling or installing themselves in new positions and lands. They're going to be very successful there, but with success comes envy. Because the only people that aren't envied are the ones who aren't accomplishing anything. So if you're somebody that has ambition and has drive and wants to excel, be prepared for all that comes with it, People with this Odu have to be very careful because fear could interrupt a lot of their processes, right? And fear never accomplished anything, really. Caution has accomplished quite a bit, but fear nothing. And when you talk about Ogbe Yono, you're going to talk a lot about an animal, which is the crocodile. I believe we came out with an episode already on that one.
Yeah, we did.
But in this Odu is where the crocodile feared everything. And the piranhas would pick on him. That's why if you look at the paperwork, it's two of the affiliated animals apart from the goat. And I think I'll save that pataki for the goat episode that we're going to do after this one. Okay. But the crocodile was fearful. He's like, the piranhas, they nip at me. I feel cowardly, and he went running to Oromila. And Oromila said, it's just really ironic to me. You're the crocodile and you're 10 times their size and you're worried. He said, yes, but I have no natural defenses. They have teeth and things like that, and I don't have that. So Ogbe Yono was revealed. He was told to perform sacrifice with needles. And when he did this, Oromila implanted the needles into his mouth. And I guess you can call them fingertips or whatever you want to call them.
Okay.
And from that came the jaws and claws of the crocodile. So the next time he went into the river and the piranhas were like, all right, we're going to end this guy. Yeah, he did one snap and it was over with. From that day.
He Thanos'd him?
Huh?
He Thanos'd him?
Yeah, he did the snap.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why it says, as long as there are crocodiles, as long as there's crocodiles in the river, Ogbe Yono will be eternal. Right? So it's literally the physical manifestation of this Odu is the crocodile, amongst other animals, but ultimately it's Ogbe Yono, because when you translate Ogbe Yono could be interpreted or translated as he who opens his mouth without measure. So when you look at the way a crocodile hunts, it's kind of metaphoric of the philosophy that the person with this Odu is supposed to have, right? Ogbe Yono cannot be somebody that goes against the current, because when a crocodile goes against the current, it accomplishes nothing. It has to go with the flow. And one of its hunting techniques is you'll see a crocodile sit so still with his mouth open that the fish willingly go into the mouth of the crocodile thinking his tongue is something to be eaten, right? And just like that, he snaps them and eats them, right? So Ogbe Yono is somebody that has to allow life to come to them to a certain degree. That's why it's known as Ogbe Suru, right? Which means Ogbe has patience. It's where the phrase Suru Baba ni Wapele first manifested, which means patience is the father of good character and conduct. So it's very important there. But at the same time, Ogbe Yono says the bigger the stomach gets, the smaller the head gets. So it's an Odu where there has to be a lot of moderation as well, because if we're not careful, we can become vicious. A crocodile that eats too much can't, maneuver the way it should. So it's very important there. But the Orisha Obadala here is paramount as well. We spoke about how Ajala is the constructor of heads, and you'll hear about Ajala, and you've heard about him more than likely if you've ever had a four-legged sacrifice done for you, or if you've done one in the Lukumi tradition. And they also sing a version of this song in Isheshe as well. So, for example, we'll sprinkle the water. Homi malero, Ajala o mi malero, which means the water's going to bring peace. The water's going to bring peace. Ajala, the water's going to bring peace. Because usually it makes reference to when certain ingredients are sprinkled on the head, which are some of the same ingredients that Ajala used to construct our heads. So when you look at processes like the esentaye or the ikosedaye, the baby is fed various ingredients, whether it's epo, red palm oil, or yin, honey, iyo, salt, which is a big one in the pataki we're about to get into. And that is to be able to activate ori, right? These sacred ingredients, these ancestral ingredients, they activate ori. For example, specifically the salt. It's been clinically proven and shown that a brain before salt is not the same as the brain after salt.
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, brother, I mean, technically salt was the first drug. So if you notice, once you had tried salt, whether we remember that moment or not, we've never been able to live without it. So when we look at the Odu Ogbe Yono, it speaks of a story where Obadala was a gambler. He had a degenerate condition and addiction to gambling. What's the gambling app now?
Hard Rock,
Hard Rock or
Prize Picks.
Yeah, this is the Odu. This is the Odu of the sports betting.
Man, I've lost so much money.
I never even got involved. Dog.
Don't do it,
no
Joseph.
Luck.
Don't do it.
Oh no, I got no luck when it comes to betting, man. I got lucky with my family. That's about it. And but Obadala had a gambling debt. Like he had run it up and he didn't know how to pay the bookie, and he's like, yo, I gotta go into hiding. This was a serious issue because when Ayala went into hiding, no one could go into his house to get the destinies, right? And he wasn't able to leave because he knew that if he left, they were gonna kill him. So he said, yeah, I'm just shutting down shop and I'll just be a hermit and yeah, I'll just never go out again. So mind you, the waiting room in heaven was super backed up. It's kind of like the waiting room for Beetlejuice when all the dead people were there. Just the opposite. People trying to be born.
It's like Soul, the movie Soul. Did you see that one?
No, I haven't had the
on
chance.
Disney. Oh
no.
Man, watch that one. That's one. I know we keep talking about this for the past few years, but we need to do like where you watch these movies and see where the connections with Ifa are.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely we're gonna incorporate that soon. Like I want to do centers and stuff like that. You know,
it's just that has to be. We have to upload that on a private server because obviously it's copyrighted stuff. But
what's his name? Michael J.
Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. We're gonna reach out to him. We're gonna get clearance.
Oh, I can call him right now.
Yeah, we gotta call him. No,
smoke or stack. Which one do you want to talk?
He's a brother. He's a both. He's so Obatala had this huge gambling debt, and Orumila was starting to hear murmurs that heaven was getting backed up and, destiny was stopping and the universe was about to implode. Like, there's so many patakis of, like, how close, like, cataclysmic, like, destruction happened over and over again. And Orula was right there to save the day. So he said, let me do divination for this situation because something's got to give here. Something's not making sense. So Ogbe Yono was revealed, where Ifa told him to perform a bowl with 3 bags of salt. And he was like, okay. And Ifa told him to take it to Ayala's door. That's where the ebo was going to go. He was like, okay. So when he went there, he took the bags of salt and he knocked on Ayala's door, right? Or he tried to get his attention. And Ayala ignored him. And Ayala said, hey, it's me, Orumila. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. We need your help. Things are not going well. And Ayala quickly opened the door and basically pulled Orula in, and Orula had his 3 bags of salt. So Obadala looked horrible. He looked disheveled. Orula was like, what's wrong with you, bro? He's like, I can't go outside because I owe these guys. I owe the Ajogun's money. I owe Iku Arun an awful money. Death, sickness, and loss. And he was like, why? He's like, I have a gambling problem, bro. He's like, oh, I didn't know. He's like, what do you owe them? He's like, I owe them a sack of salt each. And Orula was like, yo, I got 3 sacks of salt right here. It's kind of like the scene in Paid in Full with Rico. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you got 3 bags of salt right there? He's like, yeah, I got 3 bags of salt. And he was like, please, can I use them to pay my debt off? And Orula was like, all right, but what's in it for me? Obadala said, hey, I'm the molder of destiny. Olodumare is not going to let me switch out of that. But if you help me with this, I'll put it in so you will be the revealer of destiny. amongst or above all the other orishas, because they were looking for somebody who was going to be the point or the professional to reveal ori, right? So everybody was putting in their applications, and Olodumare was like, who do I pick? So a recommendation from Ayala was going to be supreme or top tier. So he said, all right, but you have to promise me you're not going to consume this no more. Like, this powder isn't good for you. And Obatala was like, yo, I'll never touch salt again if you get me out of this. So they made the pact. He gave the salt to Obatala. Obatala broke Iku Arung and Ofo off. Then immediately from there, they went in front of Olodumare, and Obatala said, I want this guy to be the one to reveal my work. And till this day, there's a couple things that come from this pataki. First, Orula is the revealer of destiny, right? The Odus of Ifa are destiny, right? It literally represents our space within the matrix. So when you look at Neo, looking at all the ones and zeros, he's seeing ones and zeros, but in reality, the ones and zeros are us or anything around us. Ireta Suka, the light is a Yobe, like it's all these different combinations and whatnot. So Orula is the revealer of destiny, and ultimately destiny doesn't just apply to human beings, it applies to nature, right? Till this day, Obatala does not consume salt anywhere, right? Because he had an addiction for it, and it ended up being the item that saved him, even though he didn't ingest it. So in this Odu, we have to be careful with the powders, but specifically the salt, right? Sodium, things like that. But it's a really epic pataki because it's the one piece of information that shows why Orula is the first step, the revealer of destiny, the conclusive step, and who identified him as such was an Orisha. And not just any Orisha, the king of Orisha, Orisanla. And Orishanla himself said, if it wasn't for Orumila, I wouldn't have been able to resolve this issue or better myself. Remember that Ifa is all about repairing destinies. And it's really wild when Orumila was the guy who helped repair the destiny of the creator of destiny or the molder of destiny. So it really just shows the exalted position that Orumila, as the prophet and messiah of Ifa, has, right? Where all the other Orishas straight up Moforibale, where they said, hey, identifying the guardian Orisha, that'll be you. Identifying the life Odu, that'll be you. Because in moments of confusion and tumultuousness, Orula was the only one who was able to sit still and rationalize things, to organize them in a way where it was productive for all parties involved without anyone getting hurt. So all of that is an Ogbe Yono, right?
Man.
So
Okay.
Orula's the man.
Yeah.
In this Odu, Ifa says, I'll touch on Obatala again because this is one of my favorite patakis in Ogbe Yono. In this Odu, it speaks heavily of Egungun, right? Ogbe Yono, one of its nicknames is Obe Egun, right? It means Obe is a bone or Obe is a spirit. And in this Odu was where the Sang Egungun icon was identified as an icon that should be made out of wood, specifically Giatori, right? Or the Atori stick or tree branch. Couple things went on here. One was where they were trying to find what was the best way to feed the ancestors. And it was identified in Ogbe Yono that the best way to feed the ancestors is to feed them directly. Now, a lot of people say, yes, it is true, the Yoruba concept, our ancestors live in the ground because we bury them there and, the nutrients and all those things decompose them. But who actually consumes them? And who consumes them is the trees, right? Ifa, they say, is as old as the trees, where they say our original ancestors were actually ewe, or trees. Did you ever see the guy on Joe Rogan who said we all descend from mushrooms?
No.
Oh, that guy was so on point, bro. And everybody was, like...
Call him loony?
No, it was Mooney.
No, were they calling him loony?
Yeah, dude was on point, bro. Ifa says he's on point because Ogbe Yono says our ancestors were plants and trees because when we started decomposing, they were the ones who would actually absorb it, right? Where originally in Ogbe Yono, it speaks of when, instead of being buried, human bodies were tied to trees to be able to feed the trees, right? And allow them to decompose on top of them through the bark and things like that. Forgive the gruesomeness. So that's why till this day, to be able to feed a gungun, it is through wood, right? As a commemoration of that. And the reason they say that is because they say Igiatori or the Mar Pacifico or actually the Mar Pacifico replaced with the one in Africa. being that we didn't have the facility to be able to grow it over here. But ultimately, Atori is identified as the oldest plant in the universe, right? It represents that ancestral link back to creation. That's why on the Atori sticks, they actually draw or carve out this cylindrical design, which is reminiscent of a snake, being that the snake is seen as, the ancestor, that which knows the unknown, kind of like Ka from the Jungle Book. So all of those things manifested here. So the first time they fed Egungun was here. Now, here's the issue, though. With all of the, in antiquity, with all of the bodies decomposing on trees, or people just, feeding the earth to their ancestors and not burying the bodies, epidemic came. Ogbe Yono is one of the Odus of epidemic, unfortunately, And with that, people started getting sick, and they're like, okay, we're trying to find the balance between the sacrifice, but also the hygienics of it all, because, we're sacrificing to grow, not to die. So divination was performed on the matter. Ogbe Yono was revealed, where Ifa told them to perform sacrifice with efung, right? Which is the calcified rock that is so closely associated with Obatala. And after they performed the sacrifice, Orunmila came with Obatala's presence and the Orishas and all of them there and saying, Awel Odo Nilesung, Awel Odo Nilesung, Nilesung, Manile Awel Odo Nilesung. There's another version that says, Bamhal Odo Nilefung, Bamhal Odo Nilefung, Nilefung, Manile, Bamhal Odo Nilefung, which is, for anyone that's fed Egungun in the Lukumi tradition, when we clean ourselves with the kakaria or the efung, it covers the carcasses of the bodies of the animals. And that was a way to be able to deter epidemic. You see it as well for anybody that frequents a farm as much as I do, that they'll sprinkle, like when you look in the cages and things like that, where the chickens and the birds are, they sprinkle a white substance on the floor. I don't recall if it is the cow or whatever it is that they put down there, but it has the same basic essence, and it's to be able to keep bacteria or disease or anything from being able to breed there and continue there. So Ogbe Yono speaks about that all the way back. So for anybody that's been in a feeding to Egun, that process at the end is reminiscent of Ogbe Yono, when Orunmila and Obatala identified that it was the best thing to cover the bodies with until they were disposed of, because they ultimately got buried, right? So very key here. For anybody that is Ogbe Yono, kakaria baths are huge, very important, with other things as well. But another animal that manifested here that I'm a huge fan of is the rabbit. Now, I don't like rabbits to the point where I would have one as a pet again. I mean, they're I tell you, man, the upkeep there.
Are they worse than ferrets though? Like,
I don't know. I haven't interacted with a ferret. Ferrets look pretty rough though, dog. I mean, I think the value of the rabbit is how aesthetic it is and how cute it is, but it'll still bite you. But a ferret's like, God bless them, but you kind of just look at them, you're like, man, you do nothing for this home, At least me, from a pet. I'm a cat guy. I'm a cat guy all day. Shout out to my cat, my Siberian. I love him. But the rabbit here, there's a couple versions of the story. There's one where he was an enemy of Obatala, and there's one where he was Obatala's son. But I like the version of Obatala's son better. So the rabbit was beautiful. He was Obatala's son. People were very envious of that because he was so fast and he was just good looking and he was just the man. He had a bunch of kids, you know what I'm saying? And he was just happy. He was doing his thing. So being that they couldn't catch him, they started throwing witchcraft at him. And the part that they focused on was his feet. So they started throwing Ogu at his feet. And this was becoming an issue because if he couldn't run, he couldn't escape, and he was going to get eaten, right? So he went running to Orula, after things got too hectic. And divination was performed. And Ifa told him, with the Odu of Ogbe Yono, to provide sacrifice to his father, Orisanla. So when he went to take the sacrifice to Obatala, or to perform it, Obatala asked him what was going on, and he said, Papa, they're hating on me. I really don't bother nobody. I mean, I take a carrot when I'm not supposed to sometimes, But other than that, I'm just living my life. And he said, well, here we go. And he covered the rabbit in cacaria, or in efun, right? It's the Ifa of the white rabbit that manifested in Ogbe Yono. And specifically, the part he focused on was the feet, because before all the witchcraft happened, it says that the foot of the rabbit was much more aesthetic. Like, if you actually look at a rabbit's feet, they're not the most attractive feet. I mean, they're covered in fur. When you actually go under, it has the nails. It feels kind of bony and things like that. It wasn't always like that, Ogbe Yono says. But Obadala told him to take baths with cacaria and to cover himself in the efung and wear white, and then he would be able to deflect the negativity. So when he did that, he did, and he always thanked Obatala and Orumila for helping orient his life and his destiny. That's why this Odu is supposed to always have a rabbit's foot. But if you look at the other version, there's a version where the rabbit stole the cacaria from Obatala, or would steal. Is it Peter Rabbit? Is that the one where the rabbit steals everything? I think it's on Netflix. I think I saw it with the kids recently. This is the Odu of Peter Rabbit. And he would go in and steal from Obadala. He didn't perform sacrifice. Obadala did with Ogbe Yono, caught him. Obadala ate the rabbit, and he kept the foot on his keychain, or, on his person, on his ileke, what have you, for good luck and things like that. So he would always be swift. So this is one of the Odus where Obadala actually consumes rabbit. It's one of his favorites, depending on the version you look at. I mean, this Odu, Ogbe Yono, it's chock full of information. Whether you go to the rabbit, this is the Odu where the Inyafa first manifested, or the Ogbe Yono necklace that the Babalawo wears to protect himself. This is the Odu of tobacco, where Orisha Je identified tobacco as the leaf of prosperity. It might be the leaf that makes the most money, maybe apart from cannabis. I don't know the numbers.
Okay.
But I think tobacco actually makes more. And we're not talking about cigarettes or vape or anything like that. Cigars specifically. This is the Odu of Taba, or Asha, where it became a very integral part of the religion, actually, whether it's this Odu, Ogunamei, etc. What do you think, Phil? I mean, really, Ogbe Yono, we can go on and on and on and on and on. For anybody that has this Odu, prepare yourself, because, with signs like Obedi, Obetwa, the Obes are big in general, but these are kind of in a class of their own when it comes to the volume of information that's associated with it. So, but really a blessed Odu. Definitely be sure to continue studying it and growing it within it. I love the Obes in general, and the series that's still to come, because Obesa is still on the way. Love Obeka, absolutely love Obetumako. A lot of real intense signs coming up. Obetwa, Obeate, Obeche, Obefunfunlo. All of them have a huge influence over the corpus in general. So really excited to continue, but I hope you liked Ogbe Yono.
Well, you know what else we like?
Our members.
Well, we don't like them. We love them.
We love them. We adore them.
Yeah. Right. And if you like this video, make sure you drop a like, and if you can, please share it. Or if you want to do more, we have our membership platform. That means you can join our special community. You're already special, but you want to join an extra special part of our community, you can. It's a membership program. It's a button right under this video, and it takes you to a special place to where you have more access, more videos, early releases, podcast episodes just for you, live show just for you, discounts on merch, discounts on courses, you name it.
Nice.
So much stuff. So today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to spotlight the members who have recently upgraded their service. So they've already been a member, but then they decided, hey, I want some more.
They leveled up.
They leveled up. So here we go. I think I have a leveled up sound, actually, but
I'd be surprised what sounds you don't have back there.
Right? I thought I do, but it looks like it wasn't logged in. Anyway, so let's go with. I'm a little blind here, so I have to squint. Iferanti. They upgraded to a VIP level. They upgraded today.
Nice.
We got Gina Quinn. They are a premium super fan. They upgraded 2 days ago.
Go ahead, Gina.
We got Joseph Papo.
Okay.
Upgraded to VIP. They upgraded 2 months ago.
Thank you, Joe.
We got Crown Me Queen. Upgraded to a VIP They've upgraded about 4 months ago. We got Carl Barnes, another VIP, about 6 months. Emeka Swain.
Oh, Mecca, what's going on, man?
Yep, VIP, 6 months.
Thank you.
And the Black Adonis, another VIP, they upgraded around 7 months. And all these people have already been members. They just decided they wanted to upgrade.
And take it to another level. And we appreciate you guys wanting to get closer to us and supporting our vision and our mission here at Our Roots Podcast. Guys, let somebody know about the membership program if it's providing value to you. Definitely be sure to tell somebody about the workshops coming up. Can't wait to meet and see each and every one of you there in Atlanta and New York. Botanica Candles and More is still up and running for all your product and service needs. Be sure to check us out, and we do ship as long as it doesn't break. If you can't catch us on YouTube video, be sure to listen to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, all the major platforms. We have a huge following there as well. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. Until next time, family, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He